Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our weekly Bhagavad Gita class. We'll start with the Mangalacharan prayers. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvise Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नीलाचल निवासाय नित्याय परमात्मने बलभद्र सुभद्राभ्यां जगन्नाथाय ते नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. So we'll continue the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The 12th chapter is named as Bhakti Yoga or devotional service. So this is the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, which predominantly discusses about bhakti. In the first 6 chapters, Krishna is enumerating different kinds of yogic methods like Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Niskam Karma Yoga, Sakam Karma Yoga, Karma Sannyas, and then Ashtanga Yoga also. So there are different yogic methods. Krishna is mentioning all of them, and Krishna is giving a choice to Arjuna, that Arjuna, you can choose any one of them. But Krishna is recommending either Bhakti Yoga or Karma Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the best. At the end of 6th chapter, Krishna says, Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmanaha shraddhavan bhajate yomam samay yukta tamomata. So among all different kinds of yogis, the Bhakti Yogi is the best. He is most intimately connected to Krishna. And if someone cannot perform this Bhakti Yoga, then Karma Yoga is also good, because Karma Yoga is the initial stage of Bhakti. In the Bhakti Yoga, we are working for Krishna. In Karma Yoga, we are working according to our desire, but we are offering the fruits to Krishna. So this Karma Yoga is a easier version of Bhakti Yoga. And when we are perfect in Karma Yoga, then gradually we elevate ourselves to Bhakti. But Krishna never recommends this Jnana Yoga. In 12th chapter again, Krishna reiterates that point. Klesho adhikatarastesham abhyakta ashakta chetasham abhyakta hi gatir dukkham dehabad viravapyate. If someone is attached to the impersonal feature of the absolute truth, that means he is trying to worship the absolute truth by Jnana Yoga, then Krishna is not recommending that. Krishna is saying, Klesho adhikatarastesham. If you worship the impersonal form, if you worship through the Jnana Yoga method, then what will happen? Then there is a lot of klesha, or there is a lot of trouble or misery in the spiritual path of Jnana Yoga. In the 3rd chapter also, Krishna has made this point. In the third chapter, Arjuna is asking this question that whether I should do karma yoga or karma sannyas. That karma sannyas is equal to jnana yoga. So Arjuna thought whether it is better to perform karma yoga, better to perform my duty, or is it better to reject the duty altogether? So Krishna is telling in all conditions, you should execute your duty and perform karma yoga. If you are highly qualified for Jnana yoga, then also you should do karma yoga for teaching people in general. And if you are not qualified for Jnana yoga, then obviously you should do karma yoga. Otherwise, you will become a mithyachari. So this is how Krishna is always recommending this bhakti yoga or karma yoga, although there are different kinds of yogic methods which he has already enumerated in the previous chapters. So in chapters 7 to 12, predominantly bhakti yoga is discussed. And this is the final chapter in that series, devotional service. In this chapter also, we have already discussed this. Chapter 12 starts with Arjuna's question. So Arjuna has already heard about the details of bhakti. In the 7th chapter, Krishna speaks about different kinds of energies, the demigod worship, impersonal worship, and pure bhakti yoga. In the 8th chapter also, the law of last wish, whatever state of consciousness one acquires at the time of death, the same, he will get a body according to that consciousness. So all those things are explained in chapter 8. And also in chapter 9, further aspects of pure devotional service and comparison with other kinds of worshippers are mentioned. In the 10th chapter, Vibhuti Yoga, opulences of the Absolute are mentioned, which help one to increase their attachment towards Krishna. When we know about the Vibhuti or opulences of Krishna, we increase our attachment towards Krishna and our bhakti is deepened. In the 11th chapter, visualization of the 10th chapter, the Vibhuti of the Absolute Truth is theoretically explained in the chapter 10. In chapter 11, in the universal form, by showing the Vishwarup to Arjuna, Krishna is visually manifesting all those Vibhutis. Now in this chapter 12, this is the final chapter in this series of devotional service. So Arjuna initially asking this question that who is better, an impersonalist or a bhakti yogi? Also Krishna has already clarified this point. Arjuna is again asking because Arjuna loves to become a devotee. Arjuna is habituated to be a devotee. So Arjuna is reconfirming whether my position as a devotee is better. So Arjuna is asking who is better, the impersonalist or the devotees who are engaged in your devotional service. So Krishna clearly explains that if you become an impersonalist, then progressing in the spiritual path is troublesome. That is the 12.5. Yeah. क्लेशो अधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्त आशक्त चेतसम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखं देहवाद्भिरवाप्यते. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline, means in the impersonal discipline or in the Jnana Yoga, is always difficult for those who are embodied. Okay, so Krishna gives this answer. And then there is a sequence of different grades of bhakti. The first class bhakti is fixing one's mind and intelligence in Krishna's service. If one cannot fix his mind and intelligence, then the next prescription given by Krishna is Atha chittam samadhatum na shaknoshi mai sthiram abhyasa yogena tata mami chhaptum dhananjaya. Try to engage your mind and intelligence and try to attain me. So if you cannot engage your mind and intelligence, you should keep trying for that. And even if you cannot do that, then Krishna comes to the next stage. So this is verse 5. In the verse 8, Krishna says, engage your mind and intelligence, that is the first class bhakti. If you cannot do that, then follow the regulatory principles of bhakti yoga, and in this way develop a desire to attain me by following the regulatory principles of bhakti yoga. That means Vaidhi bhakti. And if you even cannot do that, if you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. That means engage your senses in Krishna service. Because by working for me, you will come to the perfect sense. Try to do some seva. If you are not actively following the regulatory principles of Bhakti Yoga, then do some seva. Suppose someone is arranging a Janmashtami festival and you are doing some seva, like you are setting up the pandal, or you are doing some managerial task, something like that. Engage your body, do some physical service. And if you even cannot do that, if however you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated. That means try to work for some higher cause. If you cannot work for God, then try to work for some higher cause at least. But in no condition, you should work for yourself. One should not enjoy the fruits of one's own action. That is very, very dangerous. The same point Krishna has already spoken in the third chapter, ninth, tadartham mukta samacha. Work done as sacrifice first, otherwise work bondage material world. So if you work for Vishnu, then it is fine. But if you're working for yourself, then there will be bondage. And from this bondage comes different kinds of karmic reactions. So therefore, in all conditions, one should give up the results of your own work and try to be self-situated. Means just work as a duty, try to work for some higher cause. So that is the prescription given. Now, today we will discuss this section 13 to 20, qualities of a devotee. This is the last section of this chapter 12. Yeah. So this is another stage that Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasat jnana dhyanam vishishyate dhyanat karma phalatyagas tyagat shanti ranantaram. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation and renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation, one can attain the peace of mind. So, the last grade of bhakti is to become self-situated. Now, Krishna is telling that if you cannot take to this practice as well, then engage your mind, engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. So here also a different gradation is given, that if you cannot do this, then at least do cultivation of knowledge. But better than cultivation of knowledge is meditation. And better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. By such renunciation, one can attain the peace of mind. So, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, as mentioned in the previous verses, there are two kinds of devotional service, the way of regulative principles and the way of full attachment in love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is verse number 8 and 9. Verse number 8 says, if you can engage your mind and intelligence completely unto Krishna, that is the best. And that is called Raganuga Bhakti. At that stage, one is fully attached to Krishna. Okay. And then the second grade of devotional service is Vaidhi Bhakti. If you are not spontaneously attracted towards Krishna, if you cannot engage your mind and intelligence completely, then try to follow the regulative principles of Bhakti, just like we are doing. We are following the regulative principles like association of devotees, reading the spiritual books like Gita and Bhagavatam, chanting the holy names, and only accepting Krishna Prasad, worshipping the deity form. These are the different regulative principles of Bhakti. And there are other regulations as well, like no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit sex. So these are the different regulative principles of Bhakti. So there are two types of devotional service. For those who are not actually able to follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, it is better to cultivate knowledge. If you are not able to do something Krishna conscious, better to cultivate knowledge. That is spoken in this verse. Because by knowledge, one can be able to understand his real position. Gradually, knowledge will develop into the point of meditation. Okay. And by meditation, one can be able to understand the Supreme Person of Godhead by gradual process. In the cultivation of knowledge, there are processes which make one understand that one himself is supreme, and that sort of meditation is preferred if one is unable to engage in devotional service. If one is not able to meditate in such a way, then there are prescribed duties as enjoined in the Vedic literatures. The Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyanas, as Sudras. So these are the different varnashram dharmas one should follow if one is not able to do the meditation, which we shall find in the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the 18th chapters, this varnashram dharma is explained in detail. But in all cases, one should give up the results of fruits of labor. This means to employ the results of karma for some good cause. So this is the purport of this verse. In summary, to reach the Supreme Person of Godhead, the highest goal, there are two processes. One process is by gradual development, another process is direct. Devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the direct process, bhakti. And bhakti has different gradations. One is Raganuga Bhakti and Vaidhi Bhakti. So best thing is to perform bhakti. Best is to do Raganuga Bhakti, spontaneous attachment to Krishna, always engaging your mind and intelligence to Krishna. If you cannot do this, then try to at least do Vaidhi Bhakti, follow the regulatory principles of bhakti. If you even cannot do that, then you at least do Karma Yoga. If you are not able to do that, then there are lower gradations like Jnana Yoga. Better than Jnana is meditation means Ashtanga Yoga. And cultivation of knowledge means Jnana Yoga. So Jnana Yoga is the lowest. And then better than that is this cultivation of knowledge, cultivation of meditation, that is Ashtanga Yoga. And better than that is Karma Yoga. And best is Bhakti Yoga. So that sequence is given here. Yeah, so Bhakti is the direct method. And the other method involves renouncing one's fruits, renouncing the fruits of one's activities. Then one can come to the stage of knowledge, then to the stage of meditation, and then to the stage of understanding the super soul, and then to the stage of Supreme Person of Godhead. One may take either the step-by-step process or the direct path. The direct path is not possible for everyone. Therefore, the indirect process is also good. It is, however, to be understood that the indirect process is not recommended for Arjuna because he is already at the stage of loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. It is for others who are not at this stage. For them, the gradual process of renunciation, knowledge, and meditation and realization of the super soul and Brahman should be followed. But as far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, it is the direct method that is stressed. Everyone is advised to take the direct method and surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Okay, so now from verse number 13, so there are different gradations of bhakti that is explained. Now from verse number 13, qualities of a devotee is explained. The qualities a devotee is supposed to have, or by cultivation of bhakti, these qualities will be manifested within the devotee. Adveshta sarvabhutana maitya karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankara samadukha sukhakshami santushta satatam yogi yatatma dida nishchaya mayyarpita mano buddhir yomad bhakta shame priyam. One who is not envious but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So these are the different qualities. First quality is non-envious, and this is a very important quality. In the 4th chapter, Krishna is telling Arjuna that I am revealing this secret knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to you because you are non-envious and you are bhaktoshime shakhacheti. You are my devotee and you are my friend. So this non-envious quality is very important. Otherwise, one cannot accept this spiritual knowledge. And who does not think himself a proprietor, who thinks that Krishna is the supreme proprietor and I am just the caretaker, and is free from false ego. If one is not thinking himself as a proprietor, that means he is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, like a sthita pragya, dukkheshu anudvigna mana, sukheshu vigata spriha, who is tolerant, means tolerating every situation. Tattenu kampam sushamikshamano bhunjana mevatma kritam vipaka. Whatever distresses are coming, a devotee is tolerating all of them by thinking that these are the reactions of my previous sinful activities. And the Supreme Lord is very merciful. He is reducing my punishment. Always satisfied, self-controlled, the senses are controlled. Vacho vegam, manasakrodha vegam, jivha vegam, udurupastha vegam. And engaged in devotional service with determination. With strong determination, he is engaged in devotional service. His devotional service is not fluctuating. Someday very intense and someday not practicing at all. Nothing like that. His mind and intelligence is fixed on me. So this is expected, but this is difficult, as we already discussed. And this will happen after a practice of bhakti for some time. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So if some devotee is having all these qualities, is very dear to Krishna. And then what else? Yashmannodvijate loko lokannodvijate chaya harshamarsha bhayadveger muktoya sachame priyam. He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. So, such a person by whom no one is put into difficulty, that means he is not giving difficulty or he is not hurting anyone, and who is not disturbed by anyone, and nobody can disturb him. In all conditions, he is happy. Who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear, anxiety, is very dear to me. A few of a devotee's qualifications are further being described. No one is put into difficulty, anxiety, fearfulness, or dissatisfaction by a devotee. A devotee should behave in an ideal way, that no one is put into difficulty, anxiety, fearfulness, or dissatisfaction. Since a devotee is kind to everyone, he does not act in such a way to put others in anxiety. At the same time, if others try to put a devotee into anxiety, he is not disturbed. So this is the ideal situation for a devotee. But generally, we can see that if we start practicing bhakti, it's not expected that from day one we will develop all these qualities. So devotional service is like a treatment. We are having some problems, and if we practice this devotional service or Krishna consciousness, this is like taking medicine, and treatment is going on, and it will take some time to become perfect. So in any spiritual organization, no one can be perfect, because common people are joining that organization to get purified. But from the day one, they will not be purified. And therefore, sometimes we can even see that devotees are not behaving in an ideal way. So in this situation, we should not criticize a devotee. We should think that, okay, this devotee is just starting this devotional service, and we should appreciate the devotee because at least he is taking the treatment. And people are roaming around without taking the treatment, but the devotee is actually taking the treatment. So we should not criticize the devotee, but we should be we should be little patient, and we should think that this devotee, gradually he will come to the stage of perfection. And exactly this is spoken in Bhagavad Gita 9.30 and 31, where Krishna says that api chet suduracharo bhajate ma mananya bhakshadureva shamantabhya samyak vyavashito hisha. Even if a devotee is committing the most abominable action, his behavior is not correct, duracharo, suduracharo, but if he is engaged in devotional service, he is engaged in chanting, worshiping the deity form, reading, hearing Bhagavatam. So the devotional, he is inside the devotional process. He is to be considered saintly, and he should not be criticized therefore, because he is properly situated in his determination. And what will happen? Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati kvanteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. The devotee quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. So son of Kunti declared boldly that my devotee never perishes. So we should allow some time for these neophyte devotees whose behavior is not perfect. And therefore, the Vaishnava principle is we should not see fault in any Vaishnava, because everyone will have fault. People, people are there in the material world and they are not perfect. Therefore, they are in the material world. So when they start devotional service, they will have 1,000 faults, but gradually they will become perfect. So the Vaishnava principle is we should always focus on ourselves. How can I adjust this situation? Why should why I'm blaming that devotee? What should be my ideal response as a Vaishnava? So we should focus on ourselves and we should not criticize other devotees. It is by the grace of the Lord that he is so practiced that he is not disturbed by any outward disturbance. And this is also in the perfect stage. We can see some devotee getting disturbed by others. So we should not criticize. We should see the fault in ourselves and we should try to see good qualities in others. That is the Vaishnava principle. Actually, because a devotee is always engrossed in Krishna consciousness and engaged in devotional service, such material circumstances cannot move him. Generally, a materialistic person becomes very happy when there is something for his sense gratification and his body. But when he sees that others have something for their sense gratification and he hasn't, he is sorry and envious. When he is expecting some retaliation from an enemy, he is in a state of fear. And when he cannot successfully execute something, he becomes dejected. A devotee is always transcendental to all these disturbances and is very dear to Krishna. So these are the ideal characteristics of a devotee. Now the misconception arises from the term devotee. So devotee is a very lofty term. Devotee means Vaishnava. Devotee means Bhakta, who has Bhakti, who has Naistiki Bhakti in his heart. But generally we use this term devotee for anyone. So we should say we are not at all devotees. We are trying to become a devotee. That is the actual term, but that is a long term, trying to become a devotee. So therefore we call everyone as a devotee who has just started this process of Krishna consciousness and starting devotional service in the neophyte stage. They are trying to become a devotee. They are not yet a devotee. And these are the characteristics of a devotee, a mature devotee. So we should always keep that in mind. And all these qualities from this section of Bhagavad Gita, what we should learn, we should try to cultivate all these qualities. Not that we should see this checklist of different qualities and we should try to match with other devotees and give them marks. That devotee 1 gets 8 out of 10. Devotee 2, 7 out of 10. No, this will be an offense and this will degrade our bhakti. We should see that whether I am able to cultivate these qualities or not. And we should try to see the good qualities in others. So that is the principle. Anapeksha shuchir daksha udashina gatavyatha sarvarambha parityagi yomad bhakta shame priya. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure expert without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. So, money may be offered to a devotee, but he should not struggle to acquire it. If automatically, by the grace of the Supreme, money comes to him, he is not agitated. Naturally, a devotee takes a bath at least twice in a day, rises early in the morning for devotional service. So, thus he is naturally clean, both inwardly and outwardly, who is pure. A devotee is always expert because he fully knows the essence of all activities of life and he is convinced of the authoritative scriptures, expert in the scriptures. A devotee never takes the part of a particular party, therefore he is carefree. So the term carefree, we have to understand that it does not mean that he does not care for anything. No, he is equipoised. He is not taking part of some particular party. That means he does not care for any material benefit. That is the actual meaning of carefree. but he is very careful to discharge spiritual activities and to please Krishna. He is never pained because he is free from all designations. He knows that his body is a designation. So if there are some bodily pains, he is free. And we can see this very prominently in the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's disciples are in their old age and they are suffering due to their bodily discomfort. And because they have accepted so many disciples and they have to accept the karma of those disciples, and therefore they are suffering. But still, they are youthful and they are not agitated by the bodily pains. So therefore, they have risen from the bodily platform. The pure devotee does not endeavor for anything which is against the principle of devotional service. For example, constructing a big building requires great energy, and a devotee does not take to such business if it does not benefit him by advancing in devotional service. He may construct a temple for the Lord, and for that he may take all kinds of anxiety, but he does not construct a big house for personal relationship. So for the Supreme Lord, he can do anything, but he is not very much attached to the material comforts for himself. यो न हृष्यति न द्वेष्टि न शोचति न कांक्षति शुभाशुभ परित्यागी भक्ति मन यश मे प्रिय. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments or desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Such a devotee is very dear to me. This was also explained in the chapter 2 in the qualities of a Sthita Pragya. Many qualities of Sthita Pragya are same as these qualities of a devotee, because ideal devotee is Akshita Pragya. Okay, a pure devotee is neither happy nor distressed over material gain or loss, nor is he very much anxious to get a son or a disciple, nor is he distressed by not getting them. If he loses anything which is very dear to him, he does not lament. He thinks that the Supreme Lord has given me, Supreme Lord gave me that and he took it away. So nothing belongs to me, so there is nothing to lament. Similarly, if he does not get what he desires, he is not distressed. He is transcendental in the face of all kinds of auspicious, inauspicious, and sinful activities. He is prepared to accept all kinds of risks for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Nothing is an impediment in the discharge of his devotional service. Such a devotee is very dear to Krishna. Shamashatru cha mitre cha tatha manapamanayo shitushna sukha dukkheshu shamasanga vivarjitam tulya ninda stutir mauni santushto yena kenachit aniketa sthiramatir bhaktiman me priyo naraham. One who is equal to friends and enemies, one who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who does not care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. So one is equal to friends and enemies. This means that externally one might have to distinguish between friends and enemies. The external behavior may be different, but internally a devotee he also wants good for enemy. A devotee also prays for his enemies, that, O Supreme Lord, please make him or her a devotee, so that all the anarthas inside their heart get destroyed and they also become a divine person. So devotee is praying for both the friends and enemies. In that respect, he is equal to friends and enemies. Equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame, infamy. These are again the qualities of Sthita Pragya. Free from contaminating association, a devotee chooses association wisely. And always silent and satisfied with anything. Always silent means if it is not required, the devotee will not speak. Another meaning of silent is when someone speaks Krishna Katha always, that is as good as silence, because one is not speaking anything material, always speaking about Krishna. when a devotee goes for a job, he has to talk so many materialistic things. But those talks are also indirectly helping him in devotional service, because a devotee is doing his job for Krishna's satisfaction. Whatever he's earning from that job, he's engaging in Krishna service. So all those talks become Krishna conscious. And the devotee is satisfied with anything, does not care for residence. Just like the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they used to sleep under different trees every day. Who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. Okay, so these are again the qualities, mostly the qualities of Sthita Pragya we have already discussed. And then the last shloka is ये तु धर्ममृतमेदं यथोक्तं पर्युपासते श्रद्धाधाना मत्परमा भक्तस्तेतीव मे प्रिया. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. This is very important verse. So first of all, Krishna mentioned different qualities of the devotees. And Krishna told, if someone is having these qualities, that person is very dear to me. In the last verse, Krishna is telling, those who follow this path of devotional service and completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. What is the purport of this? So Krishna is trying to say here that even if you do not have all these qualities are hard to achieve, but you are following devotional service in a very short time, you will achieve these qualities and you will become very dear to me. Okay, so that is the greatest quality, that if you're following the path of devotional service. Okay, in this chapter from verse number 2 through the end, from Maya Vesha Mano Yemam through Yetu Dharmamritam Idam, the Supreme Lord has explained the process of transcendental service for approaching Him. Such processes are very dear to the Lord, and He accepts a person engaged in them. The question of who is better, one who is engaged in the path of impersonal Brahman, or who is engaged in the personal service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was raised by Arjuna. So Srila Prabhupada is giving a summary. First of all, Arjuna had this question of who is better, an impersonalist or a devotee? And the Lord replied to him so explicitly that there is no doubt that devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is best of all processes. So because Krishna is very clearly saying here in this chapter that bhakti is the best, therefore this name of this chapter is Bhakti Yoga, devotional service. In other words, in this chapter it is decided that through good association one develops attachment for pure devotional service and therefore accepts a bona fide spiritual master, and from him begins to hear and chant and observe the regulatory principles of devotional service with faith, attachment, and devotion, and thus become engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the middle section of this chapter where the different grades of bhakti are explained. If someone is attached to the form of Krishna, if someone is attached to the form of Krishna and doing Raganuga Bhakti, that is the best. And if one cannot do Raganuga Bhakti, then one should do Vaidhi Bhakti. In the Vaidhi Bhakti, the spiritual master plays an important role. The spiritual master instructs, and according to the instruction of the spiritual master, the disciple is following the regulatory principles of Bhakti. Okay, this path is recommended in this chapter. Therefore, there is no doubt that devotional service is the only absolute path for self-realization, for the attainment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of this Supreme Absolute Truth, as described in this chapter, is recommended only up to the time one surrenders himself for self-realization. In other words, as long as one does not have the chance to associate with a pure devotee, the impersonal conception may be beneficial. In the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, one works without free pressure, meditates, and cultivates knowledge to understand spirit and matter. This is necessary as long as one is not in the association of a pure devotee. So, in this chapter, we have seen Krishna is always placing devotional service in a superior position than the practice of impersonal worship. But impersonal worship is better than atheism. If someone is not following anything, following the impersonal path is better. But as soon as someone gets a pure devotee or someone in the parampara, a Vaishnava, the association of a Vaishnava, one should not uh, worship the impersonal form because one has the better option. One can now perform devotional service or bhakti yoga. So one should switch to bhakti yoga immediately when one gets the association of Vaishnava. Fortunately, if one develops directly a desire to engage in Krishna consciousness in pure devotional service, it does not need to undergo step-by-step improvements in spiritual realization. Devotional service, as described in the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, is more congenial. One need not bother about materials to keep body and soul together because by the grace of the Lord, everything is carried out automatically. So we should not be very much bothered about these materialistic activities because if you see, even the animals are also maintaining their body. The elephant is requiring a huge amount of food every day. The Supreme Lord is supplying them. So by the grace of the Lord, whatever is needed for us, that will be supplied. But generally, we work hard for our greed. Our need will be supplied automatically by the grace of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, we should reduce our greed and then we can make some time for our spiritual life. And thus, by following the process of Bhakti Yoga, we can get connected to Krishna. And by getting connected to Krishna, we will derive the actual happiness because Krishna is the source of all happiness. Thus, end the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the 12th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of devotional service. Now, from chapter 13 onwards, predominantly Jnana Yoga will be discussed. So, first 6 chapters are Karma Yoga, middle 6 chapters are predominantly Bhakti Yoga, and last 6 chapters are predominantly Jnana Yoga. So, this Karma and Jnana is protecting Bhakti, or Karma and Jnana assisting Bhakti. And the main message of Bhagavad Gita is given in this 7 to 12 chapter. So we will discuss chapter 13 from the next week. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions? Okay. So we'll again meet next week at the same time. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.